Hey lovelies, and welcome back to Reviews and Recaps. Let's talk about Love is Blind reunion. Now, can I just say, Amy looked so beautiful wearing that lovely dress. Like, it just complemented her skin so well. She just looked really, really stunning. AD looks really, really nice as well. And some of the other ladies also did as well. But those are the two that really, really stood out for me. You guys already know I feel like we didn't see enough of Johnny and Amy this season. But I will say that I love the way that they're gelling so well. It feels like the conversation and the chemistry between them is so evident. They're like smiling and you can almost feel the love radiating when you see them together. Of course, Vanessa and Nick asked them how things were going. They talked about how their families are getting along so well. Even like their fathers are friends and talk to each other, which I think is always very nice in like a relationship where the families mesh together and they're just getting along so well. I love that we have a positive sort of couple on the show because I feel like the whole show has been like carnage. And it's nice that there is like a nice, non-toxic couple. I also liked that they've never really had a fight before. So they've had disagreements, but it's never really been a full-on fight. Because I feel like sometimes people think relationships should involve things like fighting, when in reality, you don't need to be having those sorts of toxic arguments. You can literally have a dialogue, have disagreements, and try to like address it in the nicest way. But now let's move on to the toxic mess, honey, because I know that's what y'all are here for. Now let's talk about Jeremy and Sarah Ann. Jeremy tells everyone that he's seeing someone. Sarah Ann walks up looking proud. I'm just like, girl, This man did not choose you, so I don't know why you're here acting like he is a prize. So it turns out Sarah Ann said they lived together. I was just thinking, that is so quick. You guys have just been dating for around a year. And it also sounds like you guys have had a bit of a toxic situation. Because what it turns out is like Chelsea said that there were times where Jeremy was out and Jeremy would say he's no longer with Sarah Ann, which means their relationship is very on and off. Now, let's be honest. Who is dating someone for just a year or under a year and you guys have broken up multiple times? That does not speak well of the relationship. If anything, you guys should see it as a sign. You guys are not going to work out. You guys are not good together. Take it as a sign. Run. I'll be honest, I've never really understood how people be dating someone. They're having so many toxic mess and fights and constantly breaking up and dating and all that kind of stuff. But then they choose to still stay in those relationships. I've always found those extremely weird. So let's shift gears a little bit to the whole experience with Laura as well, right? And one of the things that Vanessa was asking was that why did Jeremy lie about his location when he had already sent his location to Laura? What was interesting was Jeremy was trying to like beat around the bush and like be like, no, and try to avoid the question. But I love how Vanessa was not having it. She's like, no, let's go back. I didn't. And so he's like, of course he didn't intentionally lie about it. I'm just like, I love how for the first part of the reunion, it felt like they were holding certain people accountable. Now, did I feel like it dropped down a lot later on after that? Yes, but I will be honest, they were holding certain people accountable at the start, which I really, really liked. Now, the question was asked to everyone whether they felt like Sarah Ann and Jeremy were just talking until 5 a.m. in the morning. No one seemed to believe it. Now, I'll be honest, whilst I personally feel like something may have been going on between both of them because of their obvious lack of character, especially Jeremy in particular, especially because it's like, why lie about it, right? So I can't believe anything that you say, Jeremy. So I'm going to go with it may or may not have happened. I don't know for sure, but I definitely don't believe you when you say nothing happened. That's all I'm gonna say on that one. In terms of the relationship between Jeremy and Sarah Ann, I don't think it's going to last very long. I feel like it is such a negative, toxic sign if you guys have had so many on and offs in less than a year relationship. just throw away the towel. Like, just forget about the whole thing. But I did like how they held them accountable to some extent. And it was interesting that I felt like Sarah Ann was getting a lot of heat, to be completely honest. And I think some of that needed to be directed at Jeremy as well, because Jeremy is the one with the commitment. Now, I understand what they're saying about Sarah Ann being a pick-me and not necessarily being a girl's girl, which is fair enough, because personally, if I was interested in someone in that way and I was on a show, I would, at least out of respect, have a conversation with Laura to prepare her, to basically let her know, I like this man. I am going to be going with this man and for this man, or pursuing this man. I know this is your flame, but I also have interest in this person because we built a connection in the pods. I think it could work. It's more of like a heads up. It's like a respectful thing, especially if you guys are in each other's spaces. You know, I personally, that's something that I would do if I was in a similar situation. As a woman, I think I would always be concerned about the other person if I was in some sort of arrangement like that. Like, I just feel like women, we should support each other and make sure that we're not part of someone else's problem, you know, some other woman's problem. That's just how I see it. Let's move on to Trevor. So, when I tell you the way they were reading the text messages was cracking me up, it was cracking me up. Honestly, it was hilarious. I almost choked. It was so funny. And the way they were taking turns, Vanessa and Nick, to read it, I was like, do not kill me. This is hilarious. I might even go back to watch it just for that bit. Now, of course, when they were holding Trevor accountable, he was all quiet, trying to muster up some tears. I didn't see the tears flowing, but he was really trying to get those tears flowing, honey, but it didn't work. Anyways, he started talking about how he is toxic and like he's had a toxic sort of relationship with this person. My thing is, I understand to an extent you feeling like Chelsea broke your heart, so you message her saying, oh, I love you so much, and this, you're trying to go back to your backup plan. I get that, right? Now, do I think that's right? Absolutely not. But do I understand how you can be hurt in that moment and just want some company or some consolation, and you feel like maybe this is the girl that, you know, is meant for me, and maybe I shouldn't have gone on the process all along to get my heart broken, right? So I get that to an extent. But you messaging her before the process to tell her about the process, to tell her what your intentions are, and then be like, peace out, is ridiculous to me. That is toxic. That shows someone who has a lot of growth to do. To be fair, even if you do the other one, you have a lot of growth, but it's a different kind of growth. With the other one, you texting her after is more like you need to be able to control your emotions and not lead by your emotions, right? And also at some point, you need to know when something is not good for you. If you guys have been having an on and off relationship that led you to the point of going to this experiment, why would you think going back to her is the right thing to do? That means deep down you also have some sort of loneliness things or issues that you need to deal with, because why can't you just be alone? The experiment did not work. Why can't you just be like, let me take the time to heal, let me take the time to be alone? Instead, you're messaging someone saying you're going to marry her. That is too much, too forward. You have a lot of healing to do. Now let's talk about the message before going into the experiment. For me, I don't like when people do that. It's like, you know that you're entangled with other people outside the process. Now, let me be honest. I'm not oblivious to the fact that chances are you are probably, to an extent, going to be dating someone outside of the experiment before you join the experiment. But what you should be saying to the person is not, I love you. What you should be saying to the person is, I've signed up to do an experiment. I signed up a couple of months ago before I met you. I personally want to go because this is something I've signed up for. I'm open to going there to find love. If I find love there, that's it, right? Let's break up now or whatever if you guys were in a relationship. And if you were not in a relationship, just say, this is the next chapter of my life. I'm moving on. I want to go and find love. Maybe if I don't find love, maybe we can try again later when I come back, right? if you must, even that last bit, I don't like it, but if you must, right? Don't be telling the lady you love her and that you're just going to for going sake. That just creates the impression that you're going there to trick people on the show, which could be what a lot of people do. Because bear in mind, these people know this show is going to be televised and they're going to get famous. This is something that is on Netflix. Like, after being on the show, I feel like your bag is probably going to be secure if you know the right things to do, right? So I just feel like most people probably do that for the popularity, for the fame of it all. And I get that. But you got to protect yourself. It's like basic common sense 101. You have to cut all ties or be seen to cut all ties. You can't be having text messages where you are saying some dumb ish like that. Anything you write can be, anything you say or write can and will be used against you, honey. So be careful of that. If you must say something, make sure you're not being recorded and make sure it's face to face. I feel like I'm teaching you how to be sneaky, but I'm just saying it's just common sense. Why would you leave something in message format that could be screenshotted easily? Even your friends could be on your phone doing something, go there and screenshot your messages. Like, I'm just saying, like, it is so high risk that I don't understand why anyone is falling for that nonsense. Now, let's move on to AD and Clay. So, apparently they spoke to each other weeks after Clay called her and messaged her, whatever. Now, Clay, of course, was giving us the sad sub story about how he battles with getting out of his own way. And then there and there, he goes into this toxic thing where he's like, oh, she's the love of my life. No, she is not. If she is the love of your life, you would have acted differently. If she's the love of your life, you would have protected her in some way by giving her some heads up beforehand, giving her the opportunity to say no so you both can say no. I just feel like there's so much that you would do if someone is really the love of your life. Let's be completely honest. I feel like Clay probably misses the affirmation that AD used to give him, the big up. Right? He's probably out here. He ain't found no one in a year to big him up the way AD bigs him up. But for him to say she's the love of his life, I completely do not believe that. I think he's taking us for idiots, and I do not like it. And looking over at AD, it looks like she was really shaking in her seat. I'm like, I can imagine, girl, because how can you be saying you're the love of my life? Yeah, and I'm glad she said she does not believe it. I don't believe it either. And you're well within your rights to not believe it. Please do not believe it. And I love how she said, what is she supposed to do with that information? I completely agree. What is she meant to do with that information? She also said something that I do agree with. You knew you weren't going to get married. You played in my face. And I was like, yes, exactly that. He knew he wasn't going to get married. This is a conversation that you have with her off camera and say to her, we ain't gonna get married. I'm gonna say no at the altar. So feel free to also say no. If you get asked first, this is my reason for saying no, right? That's what you do if you're trying to protect someone that is the love of your life. You make sure they've had the opportunity to prep their family members to be like, okay, this ain't gonna happen. Just go there and just sit down and look, smile and look whatever. And if I get the opportunity, I would be saying no. Okay. I feel like that's what he should have done at the very least. If let's say, for instance, production was trying to force them to the altar, he could have done that. I'm sure AD would appreciate that than leaving her completely blindsided and completely hurt at the altar. Now, did he understand the assignment from a production perspective? They would have loved it, because production based, that is looking like that is why it's generated so much conversation, let's be honest. Because if we're truly being honest, if Clay had prepped her, unless she's a very good actress, we're not going to see this level of emotion. So I guess it worked out the way it was meant to. Clay did say that he is going to therapy, which I really hope he continues to do. Because initially he said he's been in therapy. I'm like, okay, been in therapy or you are actively in therapy. Now, the reason I say that is because sometimes certain things that or traumatic events that has happened in your life requires a lot of work. Not just a year in therapy, it requires ongoing therapy for a while, right? And so I'm just wondering whether or not it is something where he has been in therapy, as in I went to like 5 sessions and I think now I'm cured, or I am actively in therapy, have been for the last year, and will continue to do so until I feel like I'm completely healed in that area. For me, those are the sorts of things that I would have wanted Vanessa and Nick to get into, but they didn't. The other thing, there were so many things I personally wanted them to get into, but before I start talking about that, let's talk about AD's opinion on Clay's mom and dad. Now, I know people were in the comment section of like various blogs that I've seen talking about like how deep it was what AD said. Now, don't get me wrong, it is very deep, but it is the truth in the sense that she does not want to be Clay's mom in the end. Did you see how they were together for how many years and he did all of these different things to her, right? By I think year 8 or year 7 or something like that, right? Who in their right mind will open their eyes and see such and be like, oh, let me willingly volunteer myself for this craziness? Could she have said it differently? Yes, I agree. She could have said it differently, a little bit more respectfully. I know she said no disrespect, but still, she absolutely could have said it differently. But she is right in the sense that, like, why sign up for the same thing to happen to her? And I completely beyond agree with that. Like, I just think, like, it is so obvious that that is where Clay is going to end up if Clay does not do the work. And so I wish that they had like gone in to try and find out a little bit more about therapy, how things are going for him, what he has learned in therapy so far, what he feels like he needs to learn in therapy so far. Now, let's talk about the things I hated about the reunion, honey. Well, I hated the fact that they brought all these other couples from previous seasons to be on the episode. It was completely unnecessary. I feel like they didn't even dive into Jimmy and Chelsea the way I would have wanted them to. It just felt like that part was rushed. No one held Chelsea accountable for all her insecurities or being overly sensitive, her toxic behavior. Nobody held Jimmy accountable for the way he deals with conflict. I really did not like that. I hated the fact that the school principal, can't remember his name right now, was not really held accountable, and they really didn't discuss their relationship much. Now, I do understand that they're now like really good friends, so maybe that's perhaps part of why they didn't really want to dive into it that much. So perhaps maybe that was what the issue was. But I feel like there were certain things like that I wish that they would dive into a little bit more. And I feel like the whole bringing the other couples in was completely unnecessary. It was a waste of my time. If you notice, I didn't really cover much or anything about what these other couples brought to the episode because I feel like they didn't bring much to the episode. What they should have done was have a proper reunion and then have a reunion special where you show those couples, you have them ask additional questions and stuff, and then we can get, that could be another part or some sort of extra bonus episode that we get weeks later. The way they've done it just does not look good, does not flow well. And I feel like this is probably the less I've had to say about a reunion before, like a Love is Blind reunion, because I just feel like they were missing a lot of things that they could have included there. That's what I personally think. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Also, thank you very much for listening up until this point. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't forget that bell so that you know every single time that I post. So just tap the little bell so you know every single time that I post. And yeah, let's continue the conversation in the chat. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Bye.